Hello, everyone. So, for today, I have a little lecture that's supposed to be about one figure over in the state of South Carolina, and his name is Ben Tillman. And just to introduce what I'm about to at least lecture for this and so forth, I wanted to at least first introduce that this would be something that I would teach in an upper level course for undergrads, especially for this being what I am doing for this course is basically a history of South Carolina. Um, and with this lecture that I'm having for y'all, this is going to be about an individual that has basically decent influences and some controversies reflecting upon him. So, for this individual, his name is Ben Tillman, or some other people would call him Pitchfork Tillman. So, I wanted to at least first um, let y'all gather information about his biography. I wanted to introduce y'all about his little life story. I wanted to at least introduce y'all to some of his influences that he's had in the state of South Carolina and a little bit in the United States Senate. Then I was going to get into the controversies of this individual because he does have controversies surrounding him ever since he first got into politics as well. So I wanted to at least introduce all of those things for y'all. So, just to begin, Benjamin Tillman, he was born over in Edgefield District of the state of South Carolina. Edgefield District is a very much agricultural based area, especially in the antebellum era of South Carolina. Um, it was very much filled with a bunch of violence and other things going on over there. So this is what Ben Tillman was really known to be surrounded with himself. There's a decent bit of controversy already at the beginning of his life. However, he was born in a wealthy plantation family. His family owned practically hundreds upon hundreds of different acres, and later in his life, he would practically own over 2,000 acres that was like in South Carolina as well as in Florida whenever he was venturing out. So his whole entire life, he was already surrounded by violence around him, and he was surrounded by agriculture, farming. Farming was his whole entire passion along with his family. So, just to have that to introduce y'all. This, however, I wanted to at least include some more stuff about him. He, at the age of 16, had a sickness for himself. He ended up at the age of 16 had a tumor and it cost his left eye. If you ever so happen to look at pictures of Ben Tillman within the textbooks or Google or anywhere that you can find for your sources, practically that's the reason that he lost his left eye, and that's why he looks kind of intimidating for some folks because he lost his left eye because of that tumor. And it honestly did cost him to fight in the American Civil War for the Confederates, so that kind of tells you that too. Um, Now, later on, whenever him and his family were farming and so forth after the American Civil War, they had some economic troubles as well as they had some agricultural problems. There was a huge drought that happened during the Reconstruction era in South Carolina, and whenever he was facing different politicians and so forth, they were also taxing very heavily on the farmers who owned a lot of plantation and acres of land. So he decided, in his own way, to go ahead and become a politician, actually. So he ended up becoming a politician. And that's basically his life story to get into this. Now, with his influences in the state of South Carolina, he ended up as the new face for the farmers movement. He wanted to be the face for a farmers movement to help out farmers, to help out when it comes to these aristocratic politicians to abuse the farmer. So he was very much trying to help out farmers, and he was very much in the agriculture where people should honestly have some form of education as well. He ended up as his own role as South Carolina governor and as well as a trustee for a university I'll get to mention as of today and so forth. Not really today, but from the past, you know. He practically helped create two universities. He created as of what is called today Clemson University as a trustee along with Thomas Green Clemson. And he also helped out to create Winthrop College, which is today Winthrop University. Clemson was an all male college, and Winthrop was an all female college. And for one professor I had actually over at Winthrop University, he used to say that Benjamin Tillman used to call Clemson his boys and Winthrop his girls. So that kind of gives you at least a little something about Ben Tillman. Clemson was an A&M type college where it focused on military as well as agriculture, but mainly agriculture. Winthrop was to help out women to basically like knit, clean, cook, as well as even teach. So it was one of the very first places that women can honestly go get basically, if you were to basically go into teaching today, get like a teaching license and so forth, K through 12 and so forth, which is what I do. So let that be known. Later on for himself, he ended up as U.S. Senator. As U.S. Senator, he helped create different policies. He was very much a very outlandish vocal individual that got his nickname as Pitchfork Tillman. He ended up having some different contributions. So free coinage of silver. He helped out when it comes to banning smoking within the U.S. Senate chamber because he was very cautious about his health later on in his life, which is very amusing. He also helped create basically a federal income tax, as well as he helped regulate railroads. So there was a good bit of stuff that he was also influential within the United States itself. But this is where we get to the controversies of surrounding about this individual, because this is why I want to introduce them. Ben Tillman is not a perfect person whatsoever. He has some different motivations during his whole entire lifetime, because again, he was surrounded in Edgefield District, surrounded by violence and surrounded by a bunch of controversies during this era. So for him, he technically joined a gang called the Red Shirt Gang. These Red Shirt gangs basically were rifle clubs that sought out to use violence against African American voters. So this was all part of like threatening, intimidation, and even lynching. One of these instances was the Hamburg Massacre, where one white American got shot and killed, as well as 6 other freedmen over in Hamburg, South Carolina. And that one figure that was a key player, a key role player in this was Benjamin Tillman himself, Pitchfork Tillman. So that's at least one controversy. Second controversy was already with him joining that Red Shirt Gang. He already has some racial motivation for himself. What he wanted to seek out was a new generation of white democracy. Him and Wade Hampton were somewhat similar. Wade Hampton was also a governor of South Carolina before Tillman. What happened was Wade Hampton was thinking about the past while Tillman was thinking about the future. And both of them were basically thinking the same, but they had different paths for themselves. So that's also another controversy for him. A third controversy for him was he was a huge opponent of women's suffrage, so he did not want to have women the right to vote, actually. He was very much very silent whenever he had women critics, especially when it comes to the temperance movement and so forth. So he basically was very silent about, but he was also semi-vocal when it comes to practically saying women should have the right to vote. So he was this individual. And one of the last things that he did was he created a whole entire new constitution in 1895 for the state of South Carolina. He proposed within this constitution that if you practically own land and you basically own a lot of land and you're wealthy basically, you are practically able to vote. So this would have been somewhat of a whole entire creation of a practically a party swing for the state of South Carolina. He was very much a Democratic Party candidate, and he wanted the Democratic Party to practically take control of South Carolina once again after a Reconstruction era of the Republican Party. What he did with that constitution was it ruined a lot of the votes for a bunch of freemen as well as poor whites, and it only helped out upper white men. So this created this swing for 60 plus years, again, 60 plus years, for the state of South Carolina to have Democratic control. So that was all part of his South Carolina 1895 Constitution. But I wanted to conclude with this for y'all. As of today, he is very much a controversial figure, and he did have some influences in the state of South Carolina. Whenever I was telling you about Clemson was his boys and Winthrop was his girls, both Clemson University and Winthrop University have halls named after him. I used to go by, whenever I was at Winthrop University, by Tillman Hall just about every single day. And I've also went by whenever I was heading toward Clemson, South Carolina, and also saw Tillman Hall for themselves as well. Today, a lot of different people, some want to keep the name, and there are some that don't want to keep the name. What would you honestly think that maybe South Carolina should do, or maybe each university for Clemson and Winthrop? Should they honestly keep the name for the halls for Tillman, or do you think that they should rename it? Again, he was an influential figure when it came to the farmers movement, and he did help out farmers to at least have a voice from the aristocrats. But he did have some controversies where he had some racial motivation and he was against women's suffrage. So I wanted y'all to have this for thought for yourselves. And I really look forward to seeing this in the comments for any one of y'all that are watching this video and listening in. And I'm glad that y'all are listening to this, and I thank you. And as always, I hope that each and every single one of y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.